Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stronger Together, a CW Supergirl fan podcast. My name's Snowy.
And I'm Nick.
Before we dive in, you can find me on IG and Tumblr at Snowy Dragon's Cave and Blue Sky and Twitter at Nitrate Film.
And you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Blue Sky as Luthor Danvers. We thought it would be interesting to start with an overview of the show. Um, Supergirl was an American superhero drama series developed by Ali Adler and Greg Berlanti. It premiered in CBS on October 26, 2015, and then moved to the CW on October 10, 2016, where it aired until its final episode on November 9, 2021, after 6 seasons. Ali Adler served as showrunner for season 1, and then in season 2, Andrew Kreisberg was her co showrunner. He continued solo for season 3 until he was removed before the season was over, and Jessica Queller and Robert Robner took over for season 4 until the end of the show. Based on the DC comic character created by Otto Binder and Al Plastino, the series follows Kara Sorrell, played by Melissa Benoist, as one of the last surviving Kryptonians and Superman cousin. The show also stars Kyler Lee, Katie McGrath, Jesse Rath, Nicole Maines, Acid Tesfaye, David Harewood, Mekat Brooks, Jeremy Jordan, Callista Flockhart, Chris Wood, Andrea Brooks, Julie Gonzalo, and Stas Nair. Um, I think it's fair to say that we both like the show.
Absolutely.
O-
Yeah.
Overall, at the very least,
hmm
like it's a show that we both enjoy. Even though it is not perfect by any means, it is a show that absolutely lifts the my spirit in some way, especially a character like Kara. And I think that is something that is very present, especially in season 1. So what did you like about season 1?
Oh, I am an unapologetic lover of season one. And I think for me, I think I think pretty much from the very moment I saw the first episode. Um, I think the thing overall about season one that I adore is the absolute, you feel it down to the tips of your toes. You really feel the hope and the joy. And I don't know. Just talking about it now, I feel that feeling. And it feels really special. I think then it felt special. It's special and important now, I think. And I think it's important for me, like I try to remember that this show premiered. I think it what was kind of the peak explosion of superheroes in sort of live action visual media.
Mhm.
And for this character to stand out like that, I don't know, it stayed with me all these years later.
I agree, and that is something that we have personally talked about before. It is the fact that this is the first female superhero show since the 70s with Wonder Woman. And this is actually the show that we owe movies like Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman, Black Widow, because it was the first show or visual media that cemented the fact that there was an audience for a female superhero. uh, I'm not saying that is like the only point of inflection for those movies and those shows, but it's definitely an important point of it. This was the first show that we had again since the 70s, but it wasn't the first try. There was a Wonder Woman show that never got past the pilot episode, And this was a show that made it okay and made it even desirable to have a woman at the center of the narrative, with an asterisk, because that it was season one and then it changed a bit, right? So yeah, season one was very interesting to me, watching it live as it was. And the thing that I liked about the show was that hopefulness that Kara has as a character that made me believe. And it was something that I enjoyed about the show, and it's something that became basically the motto of Kara and Supergirl: hope, help, and compassion for all. It was what drew it, like the thing that drove me to the show. I love the relationship between Kara and Alex, and between Kara and Kat. I think those were the high points for me. Which leads me to ask, like, what was something from season one that you didn't quite like as much?
I th- I think the thing that stands out to me, I think fair to say, particularly in retrospect, I do think be we've both been fans of the show from the start. So, and now that the show's been off the air for 5 years, there's a little bit of hindsight. But I think even when I was watching it, I could feel some of the awkwardness because I will caveat I did like James and Kara when I was
Same.
watching the first season live. But
Yes.
I do think the thing that hurts season one the most is this wobbliness of the writers trying to figure out what they wanted to do romantically with the show with various characters. And
Mhm.
it feels like we were seeing their writer room discourse happen in real time rather than them making those decisions in the writer's room and moving forward. I do think towards the end of season one they'd figured some of it out, but in some ways, sadly, it was almost like too little too late at that point. Like the momentum had kind of been lost a little on that angle. I think for me, that's the thing that is maybe like the weakest part of season one.
I have to agree. I think the romantic relationships in season one were the weakest. Not necessarily. Again, I also like James and Kara, but I like them, but I didn't love them. You know, and also I didn't quite like both triangles that they had going on. They had Kara, James, and Win, and then they had Kara, James, and Lucy. And felt a disconnection with both those triangles. If anything, I think Kara will have been one character to say, you know what, I don't need this in my life right now.
Mhm.
But that was one of the drawings, like the drawing thing about Kara is that she wanted it all, and she's a romantic. She wanted that relationship in her life. Um, Another thing that didn't quite work for me in season one, and I cannot exactly pinpoint what it was with him, it was Max Lord. I think there was something missing with him, and I don't think it was the actor. I think the actor did pretty well with what he was given. Uh, it's just that I think they wrote themselves in a sort of corner with Max. He was a little bit like a discount Lex Luthor, and but also he was quote unquote a good character. His moral were a little out of whack, but he was the good guy. Um, that didn't quite work for me. Another thing that didn't work for me that well was actually the Kryptonians. I think it was a bit too soon for the Kryptonians to be in as like the antagonist. It was season one, and you brought like I think the biggest type of enemies for Kara in season one because there were supposed to be the ones that could match Kara in a battle, right? I think it was a bit early to bring them on, and then to kill Astra, uh, the biggest connection. I think it was a bit of a missed opportunity. Um, but yeah, basically the romance was the thing that sticks out the most for me in hindsight. Um, I think also that bring us to when they did the change to the CW in season two forward.
Mhm.
I think the romantic relationship was the thing that suffered the most, didn't it?
I think that is very fair to say. And that it caused other things as well that I think harmed the show as sort of uh, overarching effect, maybe, or blast radius effect, I think is what I was thinking.
Yeah, because with the move to the CW, it wasn't just a move to another network. It was also a filming location. It was moved from LA to Vancouver, and with that move, we lost Calista Flockhart as Cat Grant. We lost uh, Jenna Dewan as Lucy Lane, and we lost Peter Facinelli as Max Lord. Right? Those were the characters that we basically lost that were like the biggest on season one. In retrospect, we may have looked it out because instead we got Lena Luthor played by Katie McGrath. But also that season got us Chris Wood as Monel and the entire like that Samite invasion plot, which I enjoyed. But I have to say that I am not the most fond of Monel, and I think it's fair to say that you aren't either.
I am not I think it pulled the focus away in a not positive way from our lead, from our protagonist, and I think it was really harmful because it sometimes it felt like they wanted him to be the protagonist and not Kara, and I at least was not a fan of that.
It feels jarring when you do all this build up to Kara having a relationship with James,
Mhm.
only for like in season one, and then at the finale in season one, they decide to go on a date, and then immediately in episode one of episode two, she's like never mind, out of nowhere when in the plot it is being like maybe 12 hours. It is a bit jarring.
Well,
Um,
it was also jarring for me because there was so much buildup. All of the romantic triangle stuff aside, that felt very useless in retrospect for season one. Is they eventually led to this beautiful buildup of James and Kara finally kissing, and then going on the date, and then it just kind of just they drop it. And at least particularly watching it live, it was extremely jarring.
it was, and I'm sure we would talk about this in depth whenever we get to season two because we have a lot to say about it. But let's go to the things that we liked about season two. That there were plenty as well. What do you think?
Yes, I think season 2 overall, I think it has a decent plot. And I do like how season 2 expanded upon and explored like aliens living on Earth. Season 1 was a lot of sort of we're trying to find the ones who maybe did things that were bad, and then it sort of is turned into their alien refugees showing up, kind of sort of starts in season 2. And I think the other thing for me that really stands out as like a highlight of season 2 is really the introduction of Lena Luthor. I think they just handled it so deftly. It feels so kinetic. It feels right. And this is with me also being aware of they were using a lot of Superman and Lois sort of couple romantic tropes when they particularly in the episode that introduces Lena, but in some ways to me it lands even more dynamically with these two characters and their backstories, and the fact that in some ways it feels like it was inevitable that they were going to meet and connect and basically kind of be smitten with each other from the start, whether you interpret that as strong friendship or romance. I think either way, it just feels right that these two characters meet and that they interact.
I agree. And I think this is a good moment to say that we are both Supercorp shippers.
Hmm.
So obviously we are going to have that bias, but we will try to be as objective as possible and get the receipts when it gets to that moment. But I have to agree about what we liked about season two. I loved Lena. I think it was, especially because she was introduced, like a guest character. The way that they wove her into the narrative of the season was fantastic. Honestly, I don't know how this season would have gone if you didn't have Lena there. And the plot of the season overall in paper I liked. I adore Terry Hatcher as Rhea. I adore in the same way Brenda Strong as Lillian Luthor. I think those three were fantastic whenever they were together in a scene. I will point out that I also really like Tyler Hoechlin as Superman or Clark Kent. I think that might be a polarizing opinion, I guess. But I did enjoy what he brought to the show in the sense that it was clear that he was a guest star. Yes, he was Superman, but he was very clearly following Melissa's and Kara's lead. And that is something that I deeply, deeply enjoyed.
It was very refreshing, to be honest.
Yes, yes, I agree. There was something that you liked about season two that you felt it was better than season one with the move?
Hmm. Something better with season two with the move. Let me think for a second.
What about this? You think about it and I will say something.
Yeah, you go.
I think that something that season two brought that season one didn't quite deliver on that was actually Alex's coming out. I
Hmm.
think I don't know if we will have gotten the coming out that we got played beautifully by Kyler and Floriana Lima as Maggie that we did in the CW that if we had gotten that on CBS. I do not know, honestly, because to be fair, we had this basically the same showrunner,
Mhm.
but CBS and CW, the audience is different. So I don't know if we would have gotten that coming out. But I will say that with the season one that we got and that weird relationship that Alex had with Max Lord, I think the coming out made made those scenes in season one make a little bit more sense.
No, I agree with that. I can't think of anything that's gonna top that. I mean, that's obviously the obvious thing that I should have thought of.
Okay, what about season three? What do you like about season three?
I think after sort of what I think is somewhat fair to say, the seismic shift that occurs with season two, and that is the start of sort of the focus being pulled away from Kara, which I do think is a loss that is not spoken about enough in the show, that we kind of lose a lot of her interior. We lose a lot of exploring her origin more, which is something she has with Krypton that Superman does not. I do like that season 3, particularly at the start of it, does refocus on that, even though sadly it's still through the lens of Mon-El, but they do also bring up this loss of Krypton and the loss of her culture and her home and everybody she ever knew. And I do like that that kind of is brought back. There's the other thing I like about it is I think it's really the first time in the show at the start of season 3 where you really see how not comfortable's maybe too strong a word, but it's almost you can see her sometimes, I guess, melding herself a little better. Because I do think, particularly in Melissa's acting, I think you can see that there are moments where she's more settled in who she is. It's not consistent, which I think makes sense because the show isn't over. But um, and I think particularly in the start of season 3 and bringing Krypton into this, and at this point, Kara's learned more of like more about her parents and how they were flawed, and I was really really excited at the start of season 3, and I think that kind of holds for a good chunk of it if you ignore certain things. But towards the end, I think it sadly all kind of falls apart. I think a little bit. I think it's fair to say, but there are reasons for that we can get into in other episodes.
Yes, I agree. I like the idea of the exploration of Krypton, given that Kara has learned from, her encounters with Astra and Non and the holograms the from Krypton that their parents sent. Um, but I agree, it is a shame that it was done through the lens of a guy. Um, and at the end, they didn't even go that deep into the trauma that Kara felt about losing not only like her family, but she lost her entire planet and her entire culture. And it is sad that they don't go uh, much deeper than that I mentioned. I will say that I really really liked um, Oderanabo as Sam or Rain. I think she really really enjoyed playing that character. Season 3 also introduced like uh the Legion of Superheroes, and besides Monel, that it is a topic for another conversation, I really liked Amy Jackson as Imbra, Ardeen, and Jesse Rath as Brainy. I think especially Jesse was fantastic as Brainy, and this was the introduction to Brainy, and facing out Win and Jeremy Jordan leaving the show. We have to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room that happened in this season. And this was when Andrew Kreisberg was basically fired from the show because of sexual harassment and another type of workplace harassment. You can tell because it happened in the middle of the season. I think they were filming like the last 5 or 6 episodes, and then
Yeah,
they
I
have
think
to
so.
stop production and scramble to basically write another ending for some reason because optics, I guess. We will obviously we will talk about this more deeply when we get to review season 6, but season 3, excuse me. But yeah, I think you can tell that something happened in season 3 by the end.
Absolutely.
I have to say that I did quit the show after season 3. I was done. I was done with Morel. But when I came back, I think it was around the 100th episode.
Mhm.
I did catch up with the rest of the show, and I adore season 4. It is probably my favorite season alongside season 1. I always have trouble with like deciding which one is my favorite out of the two. But I season 4 is definitely my favorite CW season of the show. What do you think of it?
I think for me, season 4 is definitely the best CW season of the show. Um, I think the plot is extremely strong. I think in some ways, and we I think we'll get more into this when we reach that season. I think in some ways they needed more episodes. I think the plot was very big. They had also had very good subplots. I think in
Yes.
season 4. I think for me, I think one of the highlights that I feel maybe doesn't always get brought up, but I really did like that, due to, a lack of, I guess, I'll phrase it as obvious love interest for Kara, um,
Yes.
is they did somehow refocus a little bit on Alex and Kara's relationship in season 4, and they explored it in a different way, due to Alex having to lose her memory of Kara also being Supergirl. Um, and I think for me that was a really interesting thing that was explored that wasn't like the main plot of the season, but is part of it.
I adore that plot because for me, Alex and Kara's relationship, I have always said that that is the heart of the show. Like Alex and Kara's relationship is the center of the show. It is how it started. It is basically how it ends. But yeah, the fact that Alex forgets that Kara is Supergirl is such an interesting study of their relationship and how basically that information shape Alex as a person and definitely Kara, right? I also really liked the Red Daughter like introduction with the caveat that while I enjoy John Cryer as Lex, and I think season 4 was the best use for Lex, I think he overstayed his welcome as a character. It has nothing to do with John Cryer. I love the guy. He's really fun. But I think Lex was a bit overused after this season in particular.
Yeah, and to bounce off the Red Daughter component, I think the fact that Melissa was basically doing double duty for that big of a season, that had
Yes,
that big of a plot, and she also had other subplots she was dealing with, I think is a testament to her dedication as a performer. Um,
absolutely.
I do also think it's a shame they did not take this opportunity to delve more into Kara's interior, but that's I don't know. Keep listening to the podcast. We'll talk about it more.
Season 4 also got us like two new characters that I adore. Uh, Nicole Maines as Nia and Asita Svai as Kelly Olsen. And in season 4 focus a little bit more on Nia. And to be fair, she came in the first episode of the season. Kelly came in midway through the season. So her introduction was a little bit more shaky. But I did enjoy what we had with her and her relationship with Alex. I think the build up was beautiful, even if a little lacking, you know. But also we have like 7 different plots. And then we had Sam Witwer as Agent Liberty. He did a fantastic job. He was really scary. This was a season that was extremely political, and I know that it was something that made a lot of people like quit the show because we were in a time that the show reflected the world we were living in a little bit too close, that it was a little bit uncomfortable. You were watching live. How was it the experience watching it back then?
Yeah, I guess for me, I guess for our listeners, I watched the show from the leaked pilot and I watched the whole show live. I never stopped watching. Um Watching that season live, thinking about that in particular, I think it was a mixture of feeling a sort of sense of dread, but at the same time admiring their bravery. I think from top to bottom, everyone involved with that season, I think it was really brave to push forward with that plot line. And I think for the most part they really delivered on it. Considering, all the time constraints that a show like that has, because this wasn't a big budget HBO show or something like that. This was on a tiny broadcast network. And to me, watching it live, it also just seemed very brave. And I think it's part of the reason I kept watching.
Yeah, I can understand that completely. Um, was there something that you didn't quite like about season 4?
I
besides
guess
Lex, I guess.
besides Lex, I guess semi-related to him, I think it's something that's kind of sadly kind of a through line throughout the show, particularly for our protagonist, is I do think this season is a bit focused on the men and a lot on their interior, and it seems a bit disjointed even when I was watching it live that wait, you basically have an actress doing double duty, but you're not giving her the meat and potatoes? Like, well, and I don't know if that was just a crunch choice in the writer's room or, but I don't know. I think in the show, it's fair to say a lot of the times they do kind of, I think it is fair to say drop the ball on actually examining Kara's interior past season one. Um, and I think it really, you really, to for me at least, I think I really felt that in season four, that lack of it, particularly because you have Red Daughter and Kara, and it's all just kind of sitting there, but not actually played with.
Yeah, I going off of that, I think for me the thing that didn't quite work and it should have worked because I like the elements of it was the entire plot with John and Manchester Black, played by David Ajala. They were both fantastic. The plot was interesting. I just don't know if it was this season to do it. But also I don't know when that season, like which season would that be to get to
Yeah.
that point. That was the plot that for me didn't quite click ever. Even when I was like, it was an interesting plot,
Yeah.
it was fantastic for John. I never quite connected with it.
Yeah, I think that's really fair to say. And I think it's also interesting because in essence, it really feels like the point of part of the point of that plotline was to push him to become Martian Manhunter, which is what his moniker is in the comics and whatever. And it's I don't know how they could have placed that in another season because I do think it was interesting, but I don't think there was enough sort of I guess expansion of it or it didn't land right. There was just something missing.
Also, the ending was very abrupt, and I don't know if it was something with the actors or there was something behind the scenes. I don't know, but yeah, that was the plot that for me didn't land in season four. Um, but I think it's fair to say that the true line in season four was basically the Luthors versus the Super. In season four, then we have the ending that was Lena killing Lex and Lex revealing Kara's identity to Lena, which was devastating to both her and us, but also that led us to season five. And season five is a big mess. What do you think of season five?
I'm gonna continue this through line of starting with the good. Is I do think a lot of season five is a wonderful, finally showcase of I think all of the little sprinkles and crumbs we've gotten with sort of delving into Car and Lena as individuals a little bit. It's almost like particularly me watching it live, it felt character stuff, and then also we got blessed with scenes with them together where they really got to like show a lot of emotion, explore a lot of interesting emotion, and to see those dynamics on screen, to see these characters and these performers who I think very clearly love these characters get to play some of that out to me was like a huge highlight of the season, particularly the first part of the season.
Yeah, for me, 5A, how we call it, it is all the episodes pre-crisis were fantastic. Like the storyline was like very well thought out. Um, it just goes downhill when we hit crisis. And I don't mean that like all the episodes are bad because I don't think they are. I think the overall arc of the season is quite good. It is just the way that they played it out. And obviously we have to talk about how the season never quite ended because we got hit by COVID. Um but also We have at the end tail of the season, we have Melissa announcing her pregnancy, and therefore,
Mhm,
the show was a little bit on shaky ground, and but that was arguably for season 6.
mhm.
But in season 5, we hit crisis. But right after crisis, and we will get to crisis, we had the fantastic 100 episode that I think is one of the highlights of the season. I think the 100 episode was one of my favorite episodes, and the only thing that I don't like about that episode are the last like 3 minutes of the episode.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I love that that episode is this really fascinating exploration of how Kara's looked at some things, which I think on the surface, I think in previous conversations we've had, we've said something like this where she is a very friendly character, but she's not close to a lot of people, or
Mhm.
she doesn't let a lot of people close. And I think she is a bit more internal than she comes across. So I think this episode was really interesting to see some more of this vulnerability she has inside. And very, I guess, selfishly am happy a lot of it is centered around her and Lena's relationship. And it, I think it's part of the reason I really do love it. I say this as a helpless shipper, but yeah, except for that last couple of minutes, like you said, I think it's a great episode.
I mean, the show is very firm in saying that the two most important relationship in Kara's life is Alex and Lina. And
Mhm.
I think this episode like cements that. Um, it is a very interesting parallel between those three that it is interesting to explore and get uh, get ready for that at some point. Um, season 5 also have like introduction of new characters. We have Julie Gonzalo playing Andrea Rojas, and we have Stasner playing William Day. I am a Andrea apologist. I think she was a really interesting character that sadly once again was ruined by crisis. I personally cannot give a damn about William.
I agree with you on all of that, and also they did lose McCad in
Yes,
I guess 5A, the first part of the season.
yes, yes,
So there was a lot of shifting and changing, but I do genuinely think they squandered what Crisis could have allowed them to do with the show a bit, and I think you
yes.
really feel it in the back half of season 5.
Yeah, the back half of season 5 is a hot mess, even when you take into account that, they were interrupted by having to stop filming because of COVID. And that led us to season 6. And if you thought season 5 was a hot mess, you were not ready for season 6. But also, what can be expected when you do not have outlines? And that is what we got. What did you think about season 6?
Oh, season 6 is I think it's interesting. I think there are some wonderful moments for some characters. And I think some characters get some good sort of, I guess, conclusion to their story in this show at least. But then the other part of it for me is for other characters, I think in some ways it makes you feel the lack of everything that much more strongly, at least for them as an individual. Um, I do think there are um, some fantastic uh, scenes with our Supercorp pairing that it's really hard not to be thrilled by that as a fan of that pairing. Um, for me personally, it was really nice. I think to just see it almost feels like at the tail end of that season, I guess the last crop of episodes, it really just seems like the actors in general just kind of went for broke. Like, we're just going to do what we want to do. We're going to have the energy we want to have. We're going to, just do everything we want, because I think maybe they were very aware it was the end, and what have I got to lose? And I think that vibe kind of sits in that part of the season in a nice way. Um, I have other thoughts, but I'll let you go for now.
Yeah, for me, season 6 is also interesting in the sense that I don't like any of the plot overall, but also season 6. I love season 6 because season 6 is for vibes and vibes only. And it should be respected for that. I have never made it a secret that I think the characters that the show ended with were this energy that they had was my favorite. I enjoyed Brainy and Nia and Kelly and Alex and John together with Cara and Lina. I think that was the dream team for me. I really enjoyed the exploration, some exploration that season 6 had, but also I am aware that season 6 had some tumbles, notably because Melissa was absent for basically half of it. They were still having restrictions from COVID when they were filming, and it was announced. Thankfully, it was announced that that was the end. And how we said earlier, like season 6 was written without outlines, which, for those who don't know, it is a big no-no when you are dealing with 24, 25 episodes per season in a show that has multiple seasons. It is unconceivable that these people really thought that they could like land the narrative of the show, the finale, without outlines. It is crazy to think about.
I would say one could argue they didn't quite land that ending for certain characters due to that. But I don't know, maybe that's a hot take.
I don't think they did. I don't think anyone thinks that. Well, you know, actually thinks that because they can say they think that, but sometimes people be saying things. Um, but that being said, was it something that you did like about season 6 that you thought was like a little bit above previous seasons?
I think for me, the thing that stands out, and I think it's the thing that makes me wish it was in the show much sooner, is the energy of the Super and the Luther getting to be on screen together, getting to work together, getting to just deal with things, solve things, encounter things, figure out how to work through them. That is something I always wanted from the show. And I reiterate, it doesn't necessarily need to be blatantly romantic, but I just love the energy of them getting to be like the positive Luther and Super pairing. And I think that is something that they'd always kind of flirted with in the show, and then they kind of got scared and pulled back. And I really like in season 6 that that is just fully done. It is fully leaned into. The energy is there. The the actors are at the right wavelength. All of that beautiful spoken and unspoken communication is completely in sync. And to me, that's something that really stands out about season 6.
I completely agree. I think that is exactly why I like aspects of season 6. I think it was the only season that gave us actually like a Super and a Luther working as a team, as partners. Again, like you said, not necessarily romantic, but it was something that was the true line along the entire show. But this was the only season that actually showed us how and why that was, right? That was the only season that showed us Lina and Kara working as equals and being honest with each other and being there for each other. Again, not it doesn't have to be romantic, but it was there. Like it was a different vibe to the entire show that season 6 had that the rest of the show didn't. Um, season 6 also introduced Mila Jones as Esme. Esme is the adopted child of Kelly and Alex. And basically, that was one of the true lines of the season. Not only like the relationship of this kid with Alex and Kelly, but with Kara as well. She was, even if it was a little sin, she was the detonant for Kara revealing her identity at the end of the show. What do you think about that?
Specifically, Kara revealing her identity to the world.
Indeed.
That is a big fat nope, do not like, think it was a very poor, hollow choice for this particular character. For me personally, in any universe, I just don't think it works. I think Kara was always very aware that Supergirl, like the glyph for her is personal anyway. I think it can't be for anyone else, even Clark. Is she's very aware that Supergirl's a beacon, just like that glyph, her house symbol, is a beacon for her.
Yeah, I have to agree. It is. I can live with the rest of the finale. I don't like. Was it perfect? Not even close. But if you take out Kara saying, like, revealing to the entire world that she was Supergirl, I think it would have landed a little bit better. I don't know if a finale, because honestly, it is almost insulting, a little bit more than almost insulting, that it is the last episode of the show. It is titled Kara, and Kara is literally not the center of the episode. And do not get me wrong, I have said it in this episode. I adore Alex and Kelly. I love the relationship. I love that they got married. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think it should have been the last episode of the show. Especially not the last episode of the show that was called Kara. It felt a little bit insulting to the character. Even ignoring that, the saying Kara Danvers is Supergirl, it is just stupid when 20 episodes earlier, in the premiere of season 6, Lex literally said people can find out about her identity and target Kelly and target Eliza. And like 13 episodes before that, in the 100th episode, when in one of these scenarios, Kara revealed her identity and everyone died. And now you're telling me that just because she said it by herself without any type of menace, now that you have a kid in the family, now it's okay to say it? I don't get that decision. But also, it is basically, and we have talked about this, it is basically because they had nothing else to give to Kara.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think it really stands out, particularly if you're a person who's watched the Arrowverse. I think it really does stand out that of all of the leads of the Arrowverse, Kara is the one who arguably, I think it's fair to say, pretty much gets nothing, and all the rest of them got everything.
But hey, at least we got a final season, I suppose.
We did get a farewell season, which is better than some of the Arrowverse ended up getting. Yes.
Yeah, sadly, indeed. I Okay, let's do something different at this point. What was something that you wish the show did? Even if it's something that they did, but you will wanted a little bit more of that.
Off the top of my head, folks, because this is
Yeah.
definitely off the top of my head. I'm not super prepared. I really wish the show had explored the reintegration of Red Daughter into Kara, because we had a whole season of them being split. And then you put them back together, and there's this beautiful scene with her against Lex, which is arguably, I think, maybe the best utilization of Lex. I think might be the culmination of season 4. And to then do nothing with that, I don't understand. I I just will never understand.
Yeah, that is one of the topics that we have gone on and on for hours. Um, yeah, I agree. Like the reintegration of Red Roller was something that felt was missing in season five. I do understand they were, as always, like trying to do too much, but I think that should have been one of the priorities from season five. I would have liked to see more about Krypton,
Mhm.
in the sense that I know there are some people that don't like that Argo was brought back. I like that Argo was brought back. The thing that I don't like is the fact that Kara never deals with any of that. Like even in season six, they do this big thing about finding Sorel in the Phantom Zone, and then they jit him back to Argo, and Kara never says all the things that she wanted to say to him in season one, and in season two when she found out about Medusa, for example. So I wish they had done more with Argo, Allura, and Sorel, especially when you teased me about it in season three, and then they just talk about a guy. So that is one of the things that I would have liked to see more in the show.
Telling me Carr didn't even have a little bit of anger over any of that
Mm.
stuff. Anyway, but
Yep, exactly. Uh, well, this is basically a review of the entire show. This is basically just a taste of what is coming for this podcast. We have a lot of ideas, and you can always shoot us a message in whatever social you prefer. And the next episode is going to be us reviewing basically the pilot. And there is a lot of tiny tidbits that we know about the pilot. Uh, Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you come back next time. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, Blue Sky, Instagram as Luther Tambers.
thank you everyone for joining us on this journey, I guess, and flying along with us. Hope you come back for more. You can follow me as Snowy Dragon's Cave on Tumblr and IG, and Nitrate Film on Blue Sky and Twitter. Uh, El Mayara.
El Mayara.